Thank you for your time. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Miami Total Football Radio, the show. A second episode in what? A span of 3 days, right? The last one was on Sunday. We're Tuesday. So 2 and 3 days. The Club World Cup has Miami Total Football Radio, the show, in full throttle. And joining me today, as you guys can see, and if you're listening, as you will soon hear, kind of gave you a little clue there at the beginning, if you're just listening, is none other than Alonso Contreras, a.k.a. Alonso El Inca. Alonso, welcome back. It's been a month since you've been on Miami Total Football Radio, the show. We were busy this weekend, but we'll get to that in a second. But how are you, my friend?
Doing good, man. Happy to be back in your show and ready to talk about Inter Miami.
Our show. You're part of the team.
Ours.
You're a regular part of the team, at least this year. I don't know if you get a contract renewal for 2026, but at least in 2025, you're part of the team. Speaking of teams, Alonso brought me on his team this past weekend at the FIFA Club World Cup. I didn't get a chance to really dissect this for the listeners and the viewers on the last show because it was with Simon Evans, and Simon was on a very tight timeline, so couldn't go into it all. But I was doing some work for your outlet, Area Sports Network for English. And we did some street interviews, some outside the stadium interviews, and we had some fun. See or no?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of fun because especially in this type of tournament, the fans wants to get involved and they want to be part of the tournament somehow, and we have to be just outside and be like, hey, you want to talk? And they were like, yeah. People chanting and screaming where they're from. And we had a blast.
It was a good time. And we will do it again in Atlanta because both you and I are traveling tomorrow on Wednesday to Georgia for Inter Miami's next game of the Club World Cup, which will be against Portuguese power, FC Porto. Look at you, Alonso. Come such a long, long way from just being an Orlando beat.
Oh, Seattle.
Seattle. Yeah, I'm talking about Orlando, Florida. You've come a long way from just being the Orlando beat reporter to now, you're traveling for Inter Miami games. I don't know what your Orlando audience thinks of this, but whatever.
I cover Orlando, but I covered the Irish Sport Network covers the entire league, so. Because I was in Seattle, we have people in California, Midwest, East Coast, and we have 20 members plus in this tournament.
Yeah, we know part of your heart though is with Inter Miami. We know. Alonso, we've got decent few things to talk about today. Not a whole lot, but we're gonna do a proper preview, una previa bien hecha for Inter Miami versus FC Porto and Inter Miami's second Group A game here at the Club World Cup. It will take place on Thursday afternoon. So if you're working, you might have to find an excuse for a couple hours late in the day, or you might have to call in sick if you're a real diehard Inter Miami fan and want to watch the game from start to finish. The kickoff's at 3:00, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll be there early. I'm very curious to see what the turnout is going to be because it's not like the first game where Inter Miami was at home. It was on a weekend. It's a big event,
Wait.
Alali fans.
The Miami fans, they have to thank that. Thank that gracias that Boca played the next day because we saw a lot of Boca Juniors. And 2 days ago, no, Saturday they played Monday. Yeah, because we saw a lot of Boca Juniors fans, a lot of Argentinian fans that they took the opportunity to go to Inter Miami, and even though Al Ahly, they show a lot of jerseys in the game.
There was a lot of Al Ahly fans in the stands, but I'm very curious to see the turnout for this game. It's not in market, right? So neither of the two teams are playing in their home city or home town, right? It's in the middle of the day. We've seen some of these games.
Georgia.
We've seen some of these games in the middle of the day not draw as well as others. The worst game so far is the one that took place or is taking place in Orlando, actually, coincidentally. But that's obviously because it's two of the lesser known teams, or very much lesser known teams. I'm curious to see what happens on Thursday in terms of the turnout. I don't think
It'll be
Porto
fine. I think
many fans either, right? I don't think it's like Al Ali that they have that many fans that will
no, but
be.
I think also Atlanta people are gonna show up for Messi.
Maybe,
I mean, they
maybe,
wanna,
yeah, you might get
and a lot of people from Brazil that they live in Orlando. It's a 70 flight. I mean, $70 flight back and forth to Atlanta. So I'm pretty sure that they are gonna be there.
Why
Oh,
Brazilians though?
I
There's
mean,
Portuguese
because
team.
because they like Portuguese. No, but they like Portuguese as well. They like Palmeiras, but they like Benfica. They like Fluminense, but they like Porto.
If you
So
find one Brazilian from Orlando tomorrow or on Thursday, I'll
we
buy
find
you.
Al
I'll
Khali.
buy
Al
you un pollo a
Khali.
la brasa. I'll buy
Yeah,
you un pollo a la brasa.
look.
But
We
he's
find
gotta
Al
be.
Khali from Orlando. We find Al Khali fan from
That's
Orlando.
different. It's a weekend.
Why is different?
Weekday.
I'm
But
gonna
anyway,
look tomorrow. I'm gonna look on Thursday.
well, Thursday, not tomorrow. But we'll talk about that. We're gonna talk about Jordi Alba's likely return because he was back in at least the 15 minutes of team training that we were able to see on Monday. What that could mean for the starting lineup. Should he be back in the starting lineup, Alonso? That is the question that I will have for you here because everyone wants to say it's super straightforward. Yes, but he's coming off an injury. Is he fit? All these things that you have to take into consideration. Obviously, if he's 100% healthy, then you say yes. But I think it's a bigger talking point. We'll get into that. And of course, Alonso, we're going to talk about just like the overall tournament and our initial observations here. I mean, let's start there before we jump into the Inter Miami talk. Have you liked what you've seen from this tournament? Is this expanded Club World Cup something that has gotten off to a good start, all things considered, in your eyes?
Yes. I mean, just why? Because fans are involved. I mean, yes. I mean, I think people are expecting to see every match packed, sold out. But you have to understand that, I mean, in the first game, there was a lot of fans. And I mean, I'm talking in Miami. Boca Juniors, it wasn't sold out, but it was a bunch of Boca Junior fans. And what I'm trying to say is that the vibe, the passion that those fans transmit to the American fans is like no matter what your team goes, you need to go there and support. This is a perfect example and a little taste what the World Cup is going to be. And so far, I like the level of the team. A lot of people thought that MLS teams were going to get destroyed, and they actually put up a good fight. I mean, I think only this game, Ulsan and Mamelodi Orlando is showing probably like 7,000 people, but overall it's been 20 plus, you know. So same it was, I think, in River Plate this morning against the Japanese team, 20 plus 25,000. So I mean, on a Monday, no, on a Tuesday, I don't even know what this calendar for FIFA what day it is. On a Tuesday game in Seattle, you know, it shows a lot of passion for the game, you know, and that's what FIFA is trying to do prior to the World Cup, trying to change the mentality of the American fans.
So I would agree that the tournament is off to a good start. I was skeptical about it, but so far so good. And Tom actually said that in the comment section. Shout out to Tom. He says, so far so good in my opinion. Adding clubs are taking the tournament seriously. Francisco Garcia says, I saw a clip of Boca fans buying in Walmart and chanting all the time. Boca fans were also on Miami Beach. They did un banderazo, which is a type of it's a pep rally of sorts, is the best way to put it, where fans just sing and chant and get together and flock in numbers in a certain area. It's very, very Latin American. Peru is no stranger to that. But they did one on the beach on Sunday, and they had a lot of Boca Juniors fans just hanging out on the beach, chanting, hitting the drums, singing. made for some cool content on social media, made for some cool clips, some cool images. The passion is there. We'll see what happens as the tournament continues to move along and the initial shine and luster wears off a little bit. Teams start to get eliminated. We'll see how things fare with the attendance and the crowd stadium turnouts. But so far, so
Yeah,
good.
so I mean, people need to stop looking for the negativity and concentrating how much joy this tournament bringing. You're not gonna have probably, I don't know how long it's gonna be for come back to America this type of tournament, because then the next tournament is gonna be probably in the Middle East. So we need to take advantage, enjoy it, take your family, kids, to watch those superstars that they only watch it on TV.
It is it's kind of replacing what used to be the Confederations Cup, which was the tournament that was held every 4 years, but the year before the World Cup in the host nation. It was an international tournament, so national teams, not club teams. And it was only, I think, 8 teams, if I'm not mistaken. I always enjoyed watching that tournament as a kid and growing up. I'm definitely more of a country over club guy, like generally speaking. But I do like what this Club World Cup has had to offer so far. Now, regarding because it does serve as, like you said, like a rehearsal, un ensayo to what we will see next year with the national team, the International World Cup. So speaking of the opening round of games, MLS, all three teams have played: Inter Miami, the Seattle Sounders, and LAFC. 0 wins in those 3 games, as you might have expected, but they were competitive. They were more competitive than what a lot of people, I think myself included, would have chalked them up to be. So no wins. There was one draw. Yes, one draw.
Yeah,
Inter Miami versus Al Ahly. There was 2 losses. Seattle Sounders lost 2-1
expected,
to Botafogo. They lost 2-1 to Botafogo, and LAFC lost 2-0 to I'm blanking.
Chelsea.
To Chelsea. That's right. 1 goal scored in those 3 games for the MLS teams. Again, that was by the Seattle Sounders. Christian Roldan with the first ever MLS goal in the Club World Cup. 4 goals scored against so far. So it's been more competitive than what we expected. We'll see what happens after the second round of games and the third round of games where they stack up. I mean, if they don't get any wins and they stay competitive, I mean, I don't know if you can deem it a success, but it's respectable. If they start getting blown out and they don't win any games, then I think it's a bit more of an eyesore that then raises a lot more questions. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Which MLS team did you like the best in the first round?
Inter Miami. I like it the most. Because Ustari provides some action in the back with a PK save. Messi, I mean, of course, he's not a Messi that we saw in Barcelona, but he has su typical. I mean, his typical. Like front cutting from the right, shooting with the left, nice passes, nice dribbles. I mean, unfortunately, he needs more backup from in different positions. But I like Inter Miami. I mean, out of those 3, LAFC just put a fight, but Chelsea missed too many chances. That game could have ended up bad for LAFC in the first half. And Seattle Sounders in the second half with a 0-2. I think Botafogo kind of like a lean back and play the game, wanted to kill the time, but Seattle just pushed forward and they could have win. But I think from beginning to end, Inter Miami was the best team for MLS.
Interesting, because some people would argue the Sounders because they would push Botafogo to the very end. Some people would say LAFC because LAFC was competitive against probably the most elite level of first round competition. It's the argument can be made for any of the 3. I don't think there's a clear cut answer. Brad here disagrees with you fully. Alonso says, nah, LAFC and Sounders were better and they played tougher teams. Tom says, I was impressed by LAFC.
But how many chances Chelsea, like Palencia was just about to take an Uber because Neto was, burning him. Then Cucurella was the same. So it wasn't a fun night for the fullbacks LAFC. Like I said, Chelsea missed a lot of chances. That game could have easily win 5-0.
So I would say for me, probably the Sounders. The fact that they scored is a plus. The fact that Botafogo was, in the final minutes asking for time, they were looking to get to the final whistle, to get to the finish line. So there was no equalizer. I think that's probably the best performance of the thing. But all that said, nobody overly impressive here. They just competed. No one was, wow, nobody got the shock victory yet. We'll see if it happens. For Inter Miami and its fans, they would like it to happen on Thursday, Alonso, because, again, they play FC Porto at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Afternoon kickoff, 3 p.m. It is a dome venue, so even though they can open the roof a little bit, it is still a closed venue. I believe they've installed grass there over the turf pitch, but that's still not natural in terms of its overall structure, so it's still a little bit weird. It's a tall task for Inter Miami. Now, Porto tied its tournament opener with Palmeiras 0-0 on Sunday. So some people said that's a good result because it leaves things wide open for Inter Miami. Some people think it's a bad result because it leaves both teams with the urgency to continue to push for a lot more points because they only have one apiece. Where do you sit? Was the 0-0 draw on Sunday between Palmeiras and Porto a good result or bad result for Inter Miami?
Yes, for me, it's a good result for Inter Miami because now Miami can easily tie another game and win the next game, or you never know, win both games, or probably make 3 points. I don't know. It's gonna be. For me, these first round results was perfect for Inter Miami because they're still in the fight. They're still like 1 point. If they tie, they're gonna still also fighting for the second place. So, as long Inter Miami suma, get points, winning or tie against Porto, it's gonna be a perfect result for Inter Miami because at the end of the day, with that result, they will have to finish and they will have control on the last game.
So I have to poke fun really quickly because I just realized. Actually, I did not just realize. I realized this before we started the show, and I forgot. Now I'm realizing it. You're in the kitchen, I think, where last time we saw you there, you were dozing off during the CONCACAF Champions Cup match against LAFC. The away leg. That is the same backdrop when you were falling asleep, my friend. Te estás quedando dormido, así, pestañeando, cabeceando. Oh, man, good memories. I can't believe that was already a couple months ago. You talk about Inter Miami's, essentially they have control over their destiny because they tied and so did the other team. So everybody has 1 point in Group A. I don't think it's a good result, though, man. I don't think it's a good result because Palmeiras and Porto are expected to be the teams that get out, right? If one team had won, then they're already on their way there, right? You have to upset one of them. You have to shock one of them to try to get out of the group. If they're both still with the very urgent feeling that they need to pick up points, I don't think that helps you because one of them you can allow to get away, but one of them has to stay in the fight. Yes, they're both still there, but they both have the urgency to be playing probably now until the final match day with their strongest 11 and all those other things. It's a lot of math, football math, a lot of soccer math. Saca la calculadora to figure out, if you win this one, how does the next one go? You got to do a lot of that. I don't think the draw was the best result for Inter Miami in that game looking at it from a bigger picture. But anyway, Inter Miami will play the Portuguese power, Porto. This is at least on paper, the most talented team in the group. A win would be a massive upset and would give put Inter Miami in a great spot going into the final match day. A draw probably keeps them alive, but probably still needing to win on the final match day. A loss puts them in a tough spot going into game day or match day 3. The most probable result, Alonso, is the loss, right? That's what we would expect. Now, we also did expect a defeat against Al Ahly, and that did not come to pass. But it did take a Superman-like performance from Oscar Ustari. Se puso la capa. He was a hero in a big way for Inter Miami. I mean, could it happen again? Could they get another good result? Possibly. But this team is much better. It's another step or two above Al Ahly, right? From what you saw in Palmeiras versus Porto, this team is even better than what we saw from the Egyptian club.
Yeah, I mean, Porto, I mean, talk about a team that has been Champions League champion. You know, I mean, it's been 21 years, but still, they have more history. But at the end of the day, I mean, like I said, Messi is not at his best level, but it takes one play to be Messi and could be a game over. Since Mascherano like to play defensive, I'm expecting to be more defensive with Porto and trying to like maintain the goal like a clean sheet and trying to counter attack, and that's when Messi is lethal.
Brad says, let's be realistic here. We ain't beating Porto or Palmeiras. From what I just witnessed from these two teams, we have no chance. They play with more intensity and they are way better technically.
He said, I mean, is he playing? I don't know.
Alonso, Inter Miami is clearly the technically most inferior team of the bunch, right? Even with Messi, with Busquets, with Jordi Alba returning, technically they're not.
Yeah, but this is
even saw in the first game.
Yeah, but
listen, Javier Mascherano did say something that we can bring up here, and it's not just about necessarily who's the most talented, right? There's still 11 players versus 11 players. There's desire. There's some luck. There's a lot of things that are involved that determine the outcome of a match. But Inter Miami is going to need to be very good. It's probably going to need some luck. And Porto's going to probably have to have an off night for anything other than a loss, an Inter Miami loss to occur. Now, again, we did not expect Inter Miami to draw in the opener. They did, but again, it took some good luck in that first half. Oscar Ustadi coming up big time and time again. Ball moves a little bit more one way or a little bit more the other way, then maybe we're not having this conversation. But all the same, for it to repeat against an even higher level opponent is a tall order. Now, if a lot of it comes down to the game plan, right? Like, I mean, this is a better opponent. So what do you do if you're Javier Mascherano, Alonso? What do you think he does? Do you think he's going to try to go tú a tú, as we say in Spanish, toe to toe, as it would be in English if you're talking about boxing? Or do they take a more pragmatic, defensive-minded approach and become a team that, instead of wanting possession and trying to keep the ball and fighting for possession of the ball, says, you know what, Porto, you guys can have the ball and we will look to counterattack you?
Well, the first thing I will do is pray. And then the second thing I will do is, I mean, I haven't studied Porto, but if we're talking about just superiority, because they're coming from Europe, better league, in a team with history that invests a lot of money, I will give him the ball. Nowadays giving the ball to the other team is not ¿cómo se puede decir esto? A dominio absoluto del otro equipo. It's a tactic, it's a tactic. You give you the ball and you wait for the counterattacks. That's all.
But what does Inter Miami do? What does Inter Miami do?
Hold it. I mean, give me the ball. Give me the ball. Don't. I mean, just try to Suarez and Messi shadow. Do not pressure your shadow, so they can save energy for counter attacks. You know, that's
So
all. And I will use Jordi Alba. That's why I will tell Jordi Alba. I know you like to go high, but keep, stay. And then when we counter attack, you know, you go up, and whoever plays on the left winger can cover you.
we'll get back. We'll get back to the Jordi Alba subject here in a second, my friend. Inter Miami in MLS for much of the last stretch has wanted to be a possession-based team that keeps the ball, that dictates the tempo, that has the lion's share of possession. That's who they've lately tried to be. Even against Al Ali in the first half, they had the ball a lot of times, right? And a lot of Al Ali's most dangerous chances came when they were hitting in transition in space, when Inter Miami's defense was playing, a higher line and leaving a lot more espacios, a lot more spaces in behind. Against Porto, I don't see that being the case. I don't see Inter Miami trying to go two or toe to toe. I mean, we haven't talked to anybody since the game on Saturday. We will do so on Wednesday. Ideally, we could have done the podcast on Wednesday, but with traveling and interviews being later in the day, and you being one place, I'm being in the other, it's going to be tough to record a show tomorrow. So, especially, you never know with Wi-Fi at hotels or Airbnbs, you never know how it's going to be. So we're recording on Tuesday before we've gotten some comments, unas declaraciones from the Inter Miami protagonists. But I imagine that Mascherano will not take a possession-based game plan for this one. I think he will be smart about it. I think he will look to hit on the counter to try to keep the team tight in a block of 8, try to be as compact, as organized, as disciplined as possible, and then pick and choose the moments in the attack when Porto gives up spaces in behind because they start throwing numbers forward to do that. Now, you could argue, right, because football is all about philosophy. You could argue that by sitting back and not playing a little more toe-to-toe, that you're inviting that pressure. And when you're playing a better team, well, too much pressure makes the pipe burst, that you're eventually going to give up a goal. I mean, yeah, that's a very sound argument, but I think if you are Inter Miami, your best bet to try to win this game is to do it by sitting back. I don't think you can try to go blow for blow. I just don't see that working out in Inter Miami's.
Yeah, I mean, Inter Miami weakness is center backs in the midfield, and we've seen it. Their way to build from the back or play possession in the middle is not their, strongest point. They miss easy balls. Their control is not that good sometimes. So all that at that level, if you play toe to toe, it will cost you the game. And in 5-10 minutes, if you do that against a team like Porto, you could be losing 3-0.
Lautaro_da. Primera vez que comenta, first time he comments, he says, si le das la pelota, no tenés la dinámica para jugar de contra. Pero para mí, si buscas la pelota, si buscas tener posesión, te van a vacunar.
Look, Boca Juniors en Benfica.
Así, te van a vacunar en los
Look, Boca Juniors en Benfica, Boca, with all the history that they have, they were patient with Benfica. You control, and then little by little start building, and they were winning 2-0. I mean, that's not the game that we want to talk. And then 2-2, but that's another story. But Boca was patient. You got the ball, okay, and then little by little, Miami have to do the same thing. You're not gonna compete a team that invests a lot of money, have very good players, and also their level of mistake is lower than Inter Miami. Yeah, you have Suarez, you have Busquets, you might have Jordi Alba back, Messi, but the other points, the other like the center backs, Al Khalif forwards, they were destroying Falcon. They were destroying the center back.
No.
They were destroying them like okay. To me, the center back is
Falcon. To me, was the second best player on the field for Inter Miami after Ustadi. Second best player.
Falcon.
Bro,
see, Al Khali break the lines like easy. It was just Ustadi.
on the right side. A lot of the attacks came on the right side.
Oh, David Martinez.
Toto Aviles. Toto Aviles was playing as the right side.
No, but Toto Aviles they need to send him to MLS Next Pro. No, he's not ready for this. No, but I'm being serious. He's not ready for this level. I mean, yeah, he's a young player, have all this energy and emotional situation to play for Inter Miami, but he has shown that he's not at this level.
I mean, listen, Thomas Aviles, from what we've seen in his time in Major League Soccer, he is reckless, imprudente. Like
you playing,
he loses
borderline. Yes,
pierde los papeles. Like he loses
borderline to play with 10 men in any time. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
He loses.
He loses papers. Man, watch out with.
In English, it was loses the plot. He loses the plot and just he completely forgets that. Oh, hey, if I do this, I might get red carded. And he's
Zambrano de Miami.
Por eso, he just completely gets blinded by like the emotions, by the game, like, and he just commits silly, reckless fouls that could really jeopardize Inter Miami. I mean, I don't think we'll go over the starting lineup. We'll go over. To
me, besides all these tactics. For me, surprising, and I agree 100% with Mascherano on the MDA -1 before the first game, when he said that they've been looking for over 2 months for new players, but the club hasn't signed anyone. Yeah, so
anybody.
Like, come on, like if the coach need players, because if Miami has a consistency type of players like just like this. Around Messi, Jordi Alba, Busquets, for Cuatro Fantásticos, Suarez, this team will be unbeatable in MLS, and they could at least compete toe-to-toe to any team in their group.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that, but
with a group, not a tournament.
Back to the game plan. Again, I think Mascherano will go defensive-minded, and I do think, and I've said this in other shows, recent shows, I think it helps plays to an Inter Miami strength, because when Inter Miami has the ball, they're not necessarily the best at breaking you down through possession, right? Last year with Tata Martino, different story. But this year with Javier Mascherano, even though they have possession, they're not the best at translating that into production. They're not the best at making that, generating chances, generando ocasiones. If you think about, it has good, people... I rewatched the game, as I do, because it gives you a clearer sense of things tactically. While we're watching the game live, we're tweeting, we're talking to one another. Other reporters are asking you questions. Everything's fresh on the eyes. You don't know the result. So there's a lot going on. When you can rewatch it later, lo puedes analizar en frío. You can analyze it from a more calm manner, and you can really see things. Alonso, in the second half, which Inter Miami played better in, I mean, what were their best chances in the second half, except for the ones late on, right? During that second half, right? With Inter Miami playing better, having more of the ball, I mean, what were their chances? There was the Messi free kick, which comes off of a free kick that he hit the side netting.
It looked like a goal from the
press where we were sitting, right? But it was a free kick, right? So no vino del juego. It didn't come from the
when you have Messi,
it came from a free kick. Yeah. No, but what other chances did they have in that second half? They had one from Chelo that did come from
he sent it to
but he shot it wide. And then after that,
a corner kick.
Then after that, they didn't have anything until the final minutes of the second half. The Fafa Pico header, and he came in as a substitute. And again, it was on a corner kick, so another dead ball set piece situation. Otra pelota parada. You had Messi's shot that followed a few minutes later.
2 shots, right? 2 shots.
He had a shot from the wing that almost surprises El Shenawi, and El Shenawi pushes it onto the crossbar. Immediately after that, on the ensuing corner kick, Peluca Falcón gets a header that hits El Shenawi in the head. I thought live and in person he saves it, but he does save it technically, but it hits him in the head and goes over the goal. So a bit lucky there for Al Ali. All the same, Inter Miami does not produce. My point is they don't produce much when they do have possession. They struggle to. Now, you could say that's a big part to Luis Suarez's lack of movement. You could say that's due to the lack of ability to penetrate lines in the midfield.
I mean, look at the midfield. Look at the midfield. Segovia, Redondo. You think they're gonna solve? They're gonna create? No. I mean,
So that's my point. So if they, when they're in possession, have a hard time breaking opponents down, I don't think it's smart to go into tomorrow thinking, okay, against a better team, a more elite team that has very dangerous weapons up top, let's go try to play toe-to-toe and give them the spaces in behind. I don't think that's a smart strategy.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And people need to understand that Busquets was probably the best number 5, that I seen.
No, time out. Because you're going to confuse people.
Okay, no, but I want to say...
I know what you're trying to say, but espérate. Because when it comes to numbers and positions like you're doing, en español un 5 is different than in English.
Yeah, okay.
In English, it would be a 6.
A 6, yeah. So, Busquets' position, I mean, he's an amazing player when he was on his prime, like the way he get up from places. But his main objective was possible to Messi, and he does it here too. I mean, with different movements.
As much though, he doesn't do it as much now.
I know, but it's like, I mean, you can tell, like, when I saw Busquets on his prime, and now I see him, he's not even I don't know, he's not even like the 10% I can imagine. But like, I don't know, like for me, Busquets' objective is to pass the ball to Messi or trying to find somebody wide open. But I think people confusing Busquets trying to be a number 10, like attacking mid or a creative person. No, his job is to play on the sides, find someone is open, and that's it. That's his job, and recover the ball, help the center backs. But when you have young players like Segovia, Redondo, and you want to create opportunities, it's hard. That's why Messi probably dropped so low and trying to start from there. I don't know.
Lautaro _ Busquets es un exjugador.
Lautaro, ponte a ver el partido de Monterrey.
No, I mean, Lautaro tiene un buen punto. Lautaro, he has a good point in the sense that, look, I mean, they're clearly active players. They're playing. They have a contract. They're on the team. They're playing professionally.
Yeah, but they're playing for Messi.
But his point is that they are far away from what they used to be. Right, far away. Like they're very close to the end of their careers. If they both retired at the end of this season, I don't think anybody would be surprised. Right? Like si los dos deciden retirarse al fin del año, nadie se va a sorprender.
And also, like this tournament was perfect to use Campana. I don't know why you let him go.
No, por favor, no. No vamos a comenzar con Campana. No, we're not going to talk about
goleador.
We're not doing it. I'm not revisiting this argument. We'll leave it for the end.
Okay, who is Suarez up? Obando? Who's Suarez up?
It's Obando, yes. But they don't have faith.
So Obando is better than Campana?
No. He's not better than Campana.
Okay. So you would have kept Campana.
That's not the point. MLS is a salary cap league. You can't keep everybody. You
talk to him, hey bro, we want to put you down.
Campana dice, no, I don't want to, and I want to play. Then what?
I mean, he can have a lot of minutes here in the FIFA World Cup.
I don't think so.
Or bring another number 9. Don't bring Obando.
Let's go back to the game plan. I think for Inter Miami, they will counterattack. I think that does give them a good chance because when they have space to attack and you have Messi on the ball, dribbling at less defenders, and with more options to pick out his passes, it simplifies things for the teammates. And I think that gives Inter Miami their best chance to get a result in this one. If there's any chance for them to do so, in my opinion, it is to do so by counterattacking. That will be the recipe or the formula for success. I'm curious to see and hear what Mascherano does and what he says tomorrow in the press conference. Match day -1, pregame presser. Very curious. We'll see what he says. Questions better be good. I don't know how many people are going to be there. So it might just be up to us to make sure we ask some very good questions to get some insight as to his thought process. Alonso, let's listen to Luis Suarez here before we dive into the positional talking points.
Bueno, creo que lo positivo, que creo que físicamente estuvimos a la altura de lo que te pide la competencia. Creo que el rival era muy fuerte físicamente también y creo que supimos competir. Después hay que prepararse para lo que viene, que es más difícil, más complicado. También sabemos las circunstancias que tiene y bueno, después ¿qué?
¿Cuánto crees que tiene que mejorar el equipo de cara a lo que viene?
No, siempre hay cosas para mejorar. Uno con 38 años sigue intentando mejorar, sigue intentando aprender para siempre seguir creciendo y bueno, no creo que tengamos que mejorar mucho, sino que la próxima hacer un gol para darnos más tranquilidad.
The mix zone was a complete mess. And by the way, very quick parentheses, very quick. And Alonso will nod his head in agreement, I'm sure. You don't have to if you don't want to. If you've been wondering why you haven't seen the interviews post-game on Miami Total Football's YouTube channel like we normally do, well, it's because FIFA has a different set of rules than MLS with regards to post-game coverage, access, availability, interviews, the whole thing. We can talk at the very end about how Messi, no pun intended, the new mix zone was for the Club World Cup. But they also do not allow us to share footage that's longer than 40 seconds. And you can't have it on somewhere like YouTube where it stays up permanently and they need you to pull it off after 2 days from the game. So that's why if you're wondering why you haven't seen any of the interviews, you haven't seen Javier Mascherano's press conference, you haven't seen the player interviews, that's the reason why we don't want to risk jeopardizing our credentials over breaking their established rules. Is it a bit old-fashioned? Yeah, probably. But these are the rules, and we have to abide by them in order to continue to be able to cover these games. But I fully disagree with it. All the same, Alonso, Suarez very interesting said at the beginning of that quote that, physically they were up for it against Al-Ahly, which is interesting because physically is where they've kind of not been their best at in MLS play. All the same, he talks about the next game, just kind of tongue in cheek says, we need to score a goal. That's all that we were missing, etc., etc. Alonso, going to positions, certain positions, the starting lineup, we have to talk about Jordi Alba, who again was in team training, at least for the 15 minutes that we could see at the start of Monday's practice. He was back with the group, did the rondos, did the warming up. How healthy he is, how fit he is. I mean, these are valid questions since he was injured weeks ago against CF Montreal. Alonso, when I asked you the question at the start of the show, or when I posed the question that we would talk about, you clearly said that Jordi Alba should start. Is that your opinion? He 100% should start on Thursday. Alonso, did I lose you? Uh-oh. I think I lost Alonso. While we figure that out, or while Alonso figures that out, I want to preface the question because, look, it's like a no-brainer for Jordi Alba to start if he's healthy, if he's 100% fit, and if it's pretty much any normal game in MLS or in CONCACAF. But in a game against an opponent that is going to be, I'm going to guess that Alonso's computer died. That's what I'm going to guess. But in a game against Porto, where the opponent is superior than you by a lot, in a game where you might have to sit back and just counter, in a game in which it could mark Jordi Alba's, first minutes back or from injury, where he may not be 100% healthy, he may not be 100% sharp, he may not be 100% fit. Is that the best game to put him in? Because we know Jordi Alba, what he can provide if he's on the field. He can attack well, he can whip in crosses, he gives you otro socio, an associate for Lionel Messi. Those are all pluses. Those are all things he brings. But you also lose a bit defensively when Jordi Alba is back there because he makes these bombing runs forward that leave in spaces behind. And that asks more of your center backs, especially the left center back, in terms of having to put out fires. In a game in which you probably are going to have to counterattack and sit deep, and taking into account that he's not been healthy, he has not been playing for the last few weeks, is it the best decision to start him? Right? Because he wasn't even in uniform against Al Ahly. He wasn't even on the match day roster, right? So he wasn't even an option as a substitute. Do you start him in this game? I mean, I'm curious to read your thoughts, hear your thoughts. I think it's a big question. I don't think it's as straightforward as a lot of people want to make it out to be. Okay, if he's healthy, he goes back in automatically. I think a lot of factors play into maybe him not starting. Because if you're going to counter, yes, he would be great to have on the counter. He'd be great in that moment. But he also leaves a lot of spaces in behind. And his defending is not his strong suit. I know he's a big piece. I'm not going to sit here and say he's not one of the best players for Inter Miami. But that is under different circumstances than is the case here. Normal circumstances don't pit Inter Miami against a team that's vastly superior to them. Normal circumstances don't pit Inter Miami having to come out with a game plan that likely has them sitting deep. That's normally not the case, which is why I think you maybe have to sit him in this one and bring him off the bench. Again, he's also not healthy, right? He's also hasn't been healthy. He's healthy. He might be healthy now, but he hasn't been healthy. He's not. He hasn't been playing, so he can't be 100% sharp. Can't be 100% fit. All those things, when you analyze it and put it together, do you start him, or are you content enough with a performance like from what you saw from Noah Allen, and do you play him as the left back? Because if Jordi Alba's not starting, then it's got to be Noah Allen at left back, and then you have to figure out your center back tandem. Let's look at some images from Monday. You'll see Jordi Alba off to your right. You'll see him clearly in the rondo. You'll just see how he moved, his movements, sus movimientos. Let's take a quick look on him on Monday. So he looks back to normal, at least from what we could see in the rondo. But again, the rondo is the rondo. It's not necessarily the more intense drills where you have to cut, you have to sprint. We don't get a chance to see that. So and there was no availability for media to training on Tuesday. There was actual practice on Tuesday. Actually, Roberto Baggio made an appearance, and there's pictures of that on Inter Miami social media. But again, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. So let's read some of the comments section here. Jerry Barrios, I believe this is the first time Jerry comments. This game will be won by the quality and ability of our right back and left back to push forward and create, and conversely to defend. Frey and Alba key to this game. So Jerry has Jordi Alba starting. Tom says Alba will start, no question about it. Brad says, I mean, he has to. We essentially have no left wing. Tom says Messi needs Alba's service. Francisco Garcia says, o jugarán con cinco atrás, which translates to, or will they play with 5 at the back? Mike V says, don't start Alba, and Miami is going to beat Porto. Hot take. Gian, Messi and Co. says, the first round of games has proven Inter Miami have a chance. Este próximo partido te puede clasificar. You need him in, and it's up to coaching how high up he plays. It's on Masche. You need Alba's leadership, plus you get Noah back at center back. Nader says, I'm not even kidding. I'm predicting Inter Miami will lose 6-0. Don't forget Miami lost to Minnesota 4-1. Porto are way better. One more comment here. Jerry Barrio saying Alba needs to start. It's nonsense to think otherwise. This game is it to have a chance to move past group stage. Nonsense not to start Alba. I mean, that's fine if you all think it's a slam dunk and it's clear. He hasn't been playing, though. He hasn't been playing. He's coming off an injury. I mean, do you really expect him just to come back in there and just be Jordi Alba flying on all cylinders? I think that part is not being considered enough. Because he hasn't played for at least, what has it been, 2 weeks? Maybe 3, 2.5. Him not playing it interrupts your rhythm. It interrupts your flow. You have to regain that rhythm. In a game, I can't call this a must-win game, but in a big game, I think it's something you have to weigh. I think it's something you have to weigh. If he had been on the bench against Al-Ahly and come off the bench and played a little bit, then I think, yeah, all right, you could start him, right? You can start him because he's shown that he's made that progress. He's taken that step. Just throwing him into the fire as a starter again when he hasn't even played 20 or 30 minutes in the last 2-3 weeks, I think that's a big ask, especially against a Porto team that we know is better. I don't know what happened to Alonso. I think he's blaming it on poor weather, I think. Yeah, he's blaming it on weather. Well, we lost Alonso, so let's go through the starting lineup. What do we think happens? Because a lot of you, we all have our opinions on who should play. But let's go with the exercise of who will play. Who do you think Mascherano starts? I saw some comments here, making campaigns for Fafa. I saw 1 or 2 comments about Obando. Obando's very interesting because he did not... he was in the roster, the match day roster for the game against Al-Ahly. He did not sub in, so he didn't feature. Now, the training session the day before, we saw him do individual work with some trainers. And he was not with the group for Friday's session. On Monday, so 2 days after the Al-Ahly game for which he dressed, he was also doing individual work with physio off to the side. He wasn't with the group in the rondos. I don't know if he's picked up some type of injury and they just had him on the bench against Al-Ahly just as insurance because they have very little attacking weapons. I don't know if, he's been disciplined. I don't know what it is, but something strange is happening there because if he dressed on Saturday, when did he get injured to not train with the team on Monday? What, did he injure himself on Sunday? But the fact then you throw in that he didn't train with the group on Friday is also a head scratcher. So something's up there. With regards to Fafa, I know a lot of you or some of you like his speed and his aggressiveness and his ability to give you some more verticality and direct play. I don't see Mascherano starting him in this one. If we start at the back, it's going to be Ustadi again. Your back four from right to left. I think it'll be Ian Frey, Peluca Falcon, Noah Allen, and Jordi Alba. Now, that doesn't mean I think Jordi Alba should start. This is just what I think Mascherano does. I think Mascherano starts Jordi Alba. And your midfield four, Tadeo Allende will start again as the right mid. Fede Redondo and Sergio Busquets will probably be the two holding midfielders. Yannick Bright was still doing running drills with the physio, and David Ruiz, who's also working his way back from injury. On Monday, we'll see if we get any more progress or a sight of more progress on Wednesday. If he's healthy enough to start, maybe you can make a case for him since you're playing Porto and you will need someone to help break things up. But again, if I said the same thing about Jordi Alba, I would have to also stay with the same thought process for Yannick Bright. He hasn't played in several weeks. Can't expect him to be match fit and fully fit in terms of his energy. So I don't see how you could start him. So Redondo, Busquets will be the central pairing. In the midfield, your left midfielder spot is where there is room for some more debate. I think Velasco Segovia is a good player. I don't know if this is the game for him. What Mascherano does at this position will be telling of his overall tactics. If he starts Segovia, clearly he's trying to have some possession. If he starts someone like Benjamin Kremaski, thinking a little bit more defensively, he starts someone like Fafa Pico, looking to counter maybe. So very curious what he does with that left midfield spot. Maybe, and I'm just throwing this out there because we did see it before the Club World Cup. Maybe you have Jordi Alba play as that left midfielder, because then you don't have to rely on him to do that recorrido, that back and forth, that two-way play where he has to have so much responsibilities defensively. Maybe, but I venture to guess that Mascherano will start Benjamin Kremaski. Likes his work rate, likes his hustle, likes his energy, likes his fight. He's often the first substitute or one of the first substitutes off the bench in a game against a better opponent. I think it would make sense to start him. I think that's what Mascherano does. Again, I'm not saying it's what I would do, but I think it's what Mascherano does. And then up top, you guys already know, Messi and Suarez. So that's my starting lineup. Curious to see what you guys think of the starting lineup. Tom asks here, is Martinez injured again? He'd be a better choice than Allen. David Martinez did pick up something. He was not with the team on Friday morning in the matchday -1 before Al Ali. I asked Javier Mascherano in the pregame press conference later that day about David Martinez's availability and what happened to him. Javier Mascherano said that David Martinez picked something up in training last Thursday. They held him out on Friday as a precaution. But of course, as we know, David Martinez was not in the roster on Saturday. So he wasn't there with the group either on Monday. Would highly, highly doubt that he starts. Maybe he could make the matchday roster, but if he wasn't even with the group earlier in the week, can't imagine he's close. Baltasar Rodriguez is back with the group. Maybe he's an outside option to start. I doubt it, though. Again, similar train of thought. Hasn't played much. Was injured. Think you could use him as a substitute if you need a goal, if you need some more creativity, if you need some more attacking flair. But I don't see him starting in this one. Again, my 4-4-2 for you guys is clear. I think that's what Javier Mascherano does. I would have loved to have heard Alonso's opinion, but he's MIA with due to poor weather. Jerry Barrio says, by the way, guys, Porto payroll is 26.9 million euros. Inter Miami is close to 75 mil, so I don't want to hear it anymore about money. Messi makes up a chunk of that 75 mil. So Jerry Barrios adds, and this is what I mentioned. He says, I'd like to throw in a curveball to Porto and play a guy that has high technical skills that they have not been prepared for. Enter Baltasar. He is a bigger version of Farias. Baltasar's pretty small, man. I don't know the actual official height listing, but Baltasar's pretty small. I would highly doubt that he's bigger than Facundo Farias, in my opinion. Brad says, it would be criminal to start Suarez. We have clearly seen he can't cope in a high-intensity game. Even the commentators were wondering why Suarez isn't on the bench. Look, I asked, Mascherano about Suarez a few weeks ago when he was in the bad run of form. I shared the clip on this podcast. I forget which episode it was, so I can't even give you the reference point to go back and listen. His interview is there on Miami Total Football's YouTube page. You'd have to find it. But Mascherano gave a response of Suarez is part of a project that Inter Miami has clearly built over the last 2 years. And Mascherano essentially made it seem like he has to adapt to what that project is. Reading between the lines, sounds like Suarez has to be a starter and that there's really no other option there. That Suarez, because it's Messi, Suarez because it's the Cuatro Fantásticos. Suarez has to be a starter as part of this project. That's what it sounded like. That's what reading between the lines, it seemed like he was saying. Didn't say it directly like that, but along the lines of what he said. Prediction time. Go ahead, comment section. Give it to me. Give it to me. I want to see your predictions. We already have one because I think we saw 6-0 from Nader. Can Inter Miami pull it off? It's mission impossible for Lionel Messi and Inter Miami, but can they do it? Can they do the unthinkable? Will they get the first shock result of this Club World Cup? I don't see it. 5-1, they lose. My opinion. My prediction. 5-1. 5-1. Brad says sounds like a recipe for a disaster. Well, there are things you can criticize about this project, and that could be one of them. Seeing if any predictions trickle in or if nobody wants to put their hands to the flame. While I give you guys some time to do that before we wrap up the show, I'll add this about, if you play Jordi Alba as the left midfielder, or you just don't have him in the starting lineup and you just have him as a substitute for the second half, I think this is my thought process. You keep Noah Allen at left back, and then you go Ian Frey and Peluca Falcon at center back with Chelo Weigand at right back. Essentially the back four that finished the game, that played the second half against Al Ahly, that would be for me, if I was picking what I would do, given the context, given the moment that Inter Miami is in, because I don't think you can just ignore that Jordi Alba's been injured. I think that would be the back four that I would go with for this game. Again, el fútbol es de momentos. Soccer is about moments. And in this moment, Jordi Alba has been hurt. So for me, that would be the back four I would go with if I was the head coach. But I'm not a head coach. Brad predicts 4-0. Jerry Barrios adds Segovia needs to be in the middle to create. Segovia as a winger is wrong. And last game, he looked frustrated after the match. Yes, I agree that he's not necessarily a left winger. That's why they tuck him in from that position. But I don't see him starting in this game. You need more defensive steel. And I don't think he's the type of player to give that to you. So again, Kremaski for me starts out on the left. I don't think there's many surprises to be had. Unless Mascherano comes out in a 5-3-2, I just don't see there being very many surprises. I don't see much room for surprises. This team is very light on bodies. They don't have a whole lot of options. And if you look at that bench from the other day, there wasn't a lot there, man. There wasn't a lot. And proven talent or talent that you can count on. I mean, let me pull it up very quickly here. You had both goalkeepers, Novo and Yarborough, on the bench, although that might just be because everybody dresses. You had Ryan Saylor, Weigand, Kremaski, Santiago Morales, who, I mean, you're not going to count on him at this stage in his young career. Baltasar Rodriguez, Fafa Pico, Leo Afonso, and Alan Abondo. So a very short bench, for lack of a better phrase. Bella says, I have hope the Messi-Suarez duo can be lethal. It's been a while since we've seen them both be lethal in a game of high stakes. Tom says, if it's no worse than 10-0, we can say MLS is greater than the A-League. We'll see what happens. I mean, for me, I'm predicting a loss. I'm predicting a lopsided loss. If Inter Miami can avoid a lopsided loss, if they can be competitive and not get blown out, then I think that's a success. I think that's a success for where they are. I know for the Messi aficionados, the diehards, it's not what you want to hear. For me, that's just a realistic approach. But everyone's allowed to have their opinion. By the way, last thing I'll say, I think I mentioned it on the last show with Simon Evans. I really, really enjoyed the bigger bolder jerseys or the numbers and names on the jerseys that were done as part of FIFA's broadcasting requirements, because there's a different font and there's a different number layout for the MLS game jerseys. But because MLS isn't necessarily as demanding, doesn't have so many strict rules when it comes to the jerseys. This is what Inter Miami's jersey looks like regularly in home games. There's the number, there's the name. Doesn't look bad, but it's harder to see from the certain parts of the stands. It's harder to see from the press box, from the broadcasting. It's harder to see if you're watching on TV. Whereas this, much more bolder, font is bolder. That, for me, in my opinion, is easier on the eyes than this. But that's just my opinion. I would suggest MLS take a look and maybe adopt it. I thought it looks better. I thought it made the players' presences more imposing, not only on the field, but obviously on the broadcast, although the camera angles from the broadcast weren't great against Al Ahly. And I just think it looks cleaner. I think it looks better, and it stands out more. It makes the players more distinguishable. But I'll leave that as my final thought there. There's more to talk about. We will do so after the Inter Miami Porto game in Atlanta. Again, I will be there. Alonso will as well. So we probably won't be able to do a show in Atlanta. Maybe on Thursday night, maybe, depending on what time we get done. But more than likely, it'll be Friday or Saturday. Maybe even Sunday, but we'll see. I'll let you guys know. I'll keep you guys updated on Twitter, and we'll leave it there for now. I have to go pack for my flight, so let me get to doing that. Thank you guys for tuning in as always, and for sticking with me here through the last 20 minutes or so. That Alonso was gone, so thank you for your time, Alonso. You know what? As a matter of fact, straight red card to Alonso Contreras for the poor internet. And I know he can't control Mother Nature, but come on, man. Get better internet. All right, we'll leave it there, guys. Thank you again for tuning in. Give us a like, a comment, a share, a subscribe. We'll be back in a few days. For Alonso Contreras, I am Franco Panizo. You have been listening to or watching Miami Total Football Radio, the show. We'll talk to you after Game 2 for Inter Miami at the Club World Cup.